Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
The Bayside Oceanfront Resort is presenting our guests today from sunrise walks on the beach to sunsets on the patio. Bayside puts you steps away from the sand with ocean views in every direction. Whether it's a date night, family trip, or corporate event, Bayside is your perfect year-round escape. Book your getaway now at 250-248-8333. Your island adventure starts here. Canucks last night, 4-2 losers to the Dallas Stars. By the way, Mikko Rantanen moments ago was just fined $2,000 for embellishment out of last night's game.
Last night?
I'm trying to remember if there was an exact play that he was embellishing on, but he just got fined $2,000 by the NHL for diving and embellishment in last night's game. He had a hell of a goal in last night's game, that's for sure.
Oh, world class.
Back from Winnipeg is our usually Thursday regular, but joining us on a Friday this week, Farhan Lalji from TSN. How are you, sir?
Good. You've been sneaking me over to this Friday slot a few times. Is it just because you like having me on with you?
Yes,
I
like
you want to be carried. You want to be carried further?
Yes, I like talking to you. And between you and I don't think Donnie does. So I think that might be what he's been.
Well, Donnie and I have had a lot of conversations over the years, so he could be talked out.
Yeah, you never know. I just mentioned it. Grey Cup last weekend. We haven't talked to you since that time. Saskatchewan beating Montreal 25-17. It went down to the wire outside of a Shea Patterson fumble. It could have gone the other way. Your recap of the Rough Riders being Grey Cup champions.
Yeah, look, it was a good game, and it kind of went the way I thought. I was picking Montreal to beat Saskatchewan in the Grey Cup for a long time, and then I flipped like 2 days before the game. I might have even flipped on your show because I just felt that Davis Alexander wasn't going to be able to do everything that he needs to do to be successful, and it looked like that, right? I mean, he didn't want to get overly mobile for certain stages of the game. Might have, did it affect his throw in the early interception? There was a bit of that. I do think that it impacted him. He still gave them the best opportunity to win, but that doesn't mean that he was at 100%, and that proved to be the difference. And when you play a team that's as deep and as talented and a defense that's as physical and aggressive as Saskatchewan's is, it's going to happen. And it's Montreal kind of hung around, and it reminded me of some of those earlier Grey Cup games. The games against Saskatchewan earlier, we talked about the 13th man and things like that, where they didn't play great and they kind of just hung around, and that happened again. And they got a couple of late points to get a chance with the Patterson play, and couldn't finish it. And I'm happy for Trevor Harris, right? He's been a really good quarterback and a very good leader in this game, in this league for a long, long time. And I didn't want him to finish his career without one, so I'm glad he got one.
When we came in on Monday, there were a lot of Lions fans in our inbox talking about, look at if they had just gotten by Saskatchewan, maybe they could have been Grey Cup champions.
It's true.
Do you see it that way?
Sure, because ultimately they would have faced an injured quarterback at that point too, right? Now, I think Saskatchewan's defense is better than BC's, man for man, but up until that final series of the Western Final, I thought BC's defense the previous 6 weeks had been pretty good. So, you do need to give them some credit there, but absolutely, this was a lost opportunity for the BC Lions. You had to find a way to finish that game. They weren't outplayed or outclassed by Saskatchewan like they had been in their previous 3 outdoor playoff appearances, right? Whether it be with Nathan Rourke or Vernon Adams. They were outclassed in those 3 games. They were not outclassed in this game. They had every opportunity to win. And if you had won that game, you had to feel good about your chances. Like, if the Lions would have played Montreal, if they would have advanced, BC would have been the favorite. Just like Saskatchewan turned into, BC would have been the favorite because of Nathan Rourke and the Davis Alexander injury. Just would have gone that way. So, yeah, you should feel like this was a lost opportunity that you may not get back.
All right, let's talk about the Canucks last night, 4-2 loss. Really good after 40 minutes of play. And then all of a sudden, Willander pinches at the blue line and they go back and score. I think they deserve better fate last night.
Yeah, you do to a point, but ultimately you got to score on those chances, right? I mean, they were really dominant in the second period, and I know a lot of the high-end scoring chances came on the power play, but whether they came 5-on-5 or 5-on-4, it doesn't really matter. When you get some of those chances, you got to finish, right? Like just think of the whiffs that we're talking about. No need to name names. We all know the plays that we're talking about. You have to take advantage there, right? When you play a team like Dallas, that's a high-end elite offensive team, they're going to get theirs. They've been a very good third period team all season. Like when the Canucks went into the third period tied at 2. I didn't like their chances at all because I just felt Dallas was going to be the better team in the third period because that's what they've been most of the year. So, it's tough, right? And we're about to see what we're going to get out of Kevin Lankin in here. And I don't blame him for the loss last night. But this is kind of that moment where all of a sudden a lot of starts start piling up. And it's a good schedule right now, like the past week, right? Like it was 3 days before games. Now they don't play again until Sunday. But as we get deeper into that road trip and there's still no Thatcher Demko and you're playing Lankin in a lot, we're going to see, right? And this was a high-end schedule. Like these 6 games they've played, the last 6, they're, what is it, 1, 3, and 2. The opposition is going to get a little easier, but he's going to play a lot of games, and we know what happened last year when they went through that.
Well, and I'll tell you something else. They better pray that Lankinen doesn't get hurt because, Demko, let's say he's out 4 or 5 weeks. If Demko's out that long, you can't afford an injury right now to Lankinen. There's no way.
Yeah, they don't have the depth in the organization. We'll see what happens with Tolopilo and, whether or not he can make it back anytime soon. Patera made some 5 alarm saves and still gave up 7 goals in that game. So yeah, you're right. Like they're in a tough spot. They who knows with Thatcher Demko, right? Like the one thing you're never going to get from this organization is any level of transparency, especially when it comes to injuries, right? So this is Derek Forbort, your 6th defenseman before the season starts, goes from maintenance to LTIR. If you didn't get transparency there, you're not going to get it on Thatcher Demko. So who knows how long it's going to take? And yeah, look, Lankinen was. Remember, we all know, right? Like his first month of heavy time last year was good,
Yeah.
but then as it got deeper into that, it became a challenge. And if you're talking 4 or 5 weeks, Rick, and you'd know better than anybody,
Well, I'm just
you should be
saying.
nervous.
I'm just saying if it Tolopilo just came back. Stop. Tolopilo just came back from a groin injury. It was 4 weeks.
Yeah.
It was 4 weeks. Goalies are different than players. Add another week or two than players. So I'm just saying if it's 4 or 5, I'm not saying it's 4 or 5. I'm saying if it's 4 or 5, just stop it. Anyways, Tolopilo just was out 4 weeks with a groin injury. Usually goalies take that long.
Yeah, look, and if the Canucks are able to get him back in the building and get him back on the ice, it's not like he's going to be their regular goaltender, right?
Yeah.
He might be a once a week guy, and that's probably manageable given the fact that you've got a groin injury. But it's also going to be tougher against NHL shooters, not American League shooters. So you got to be careful with his return, much like you would with Demko, and we'll see where it goes, right? Look. I'm not fully convinced the goaltending plan was the plan, right? I just think it kind of fell into those pieces. Like I felt when they signed Lankinen at the front end, I'm thinking, okay, this is high for a 1B, right? Like you've got to be thinking of this as a real value 1A. And I thought they signed him with a low sample size for that amount of money. Then all of a sudden you bring Demko back, and now all of a sudden it's a lot of money invested in your goaltending with 13 million. Well, okay, well here you are. Right. So you invested it for this exact situation. So, let's see what the kid can do. And honestly, in fairness to Lankinen, this team's got to be better defensively. Like when you look at the heat maps after games, the third period of last night's games, in the earlier games in Florida, like they are hemorrhaging chances. So we've talked about the trust they may or may not have in their own roles in Adam Foote's system. I'm not saying they don't trust Adam Foote. I'm just saying trust themselves in terms of being able to execute and make the right reads. If there's practice opportunities here, they need it because they've made those mistakes. You talked about Willander, which wasn't necessarily an in-zone mistake.
No.
It was, pinching and getting caught up ice, but they need to be better with their in-zone defending because it's taken a step back from what it looked like last year. So whatever goalie's in there, you're in tough shape based on the chances they're seeing.
I know you were tied up with the Grey Cup last Sunday, as we talked about, but also last Sunday was Seahawks-Rams. 21-19.
I watched it.
Seahawks
on the field.
You
were
doing 2 things at once? Look at you. You're just...
Yeah, I was watching it on the field in Winnipeg.
You gotta explain that to Dollywall one of these days. Yeah. He doesn't know how to do that. But 21-19, Seahawks surprisingly in it down to the wire, despite 4 interceptions for Sam Darnold. So there was a lot of this, here we go, big games last year and he struggled. Big game, hyped up game this past weekend and he struggled. Where's your concern level with Sam Darnold?
Well, look, every game you lose is the big game, right? Like that's kind of how this works, right? Late, great Florida State head coach Bobby Bowden, who couldn't win the big Miami game all the time, used to say, the big game is the one that you lose because no one views the other ones as the big games. So, he's going to get an opportunity to play the Rams again at home. He's played big games against San Francisco. He's played big games against other teams. He has done just fine, and his team certainly got his back. They had it in game with how well the defense played to still keep them in it. And you heard the comments after the game, so. I think Sam Darnold's going to be fine, and like we'll see because it's fair to go back to those last two games of last year, but he's got a bit more runway here to kind of get his game back, and I think he will, right? Like this guy has played really, really good football this season. He's been efficient. He's been smart with the football. Did he get careless on Sunday? Absolutely. Did he let one interception pile on to the next? Yes, he did. Now, there's always a line there, right? That you've got to be willing to throw the next one. But the 3 and 4 were really, really careless plays. So I think he'll take a step back and readdress that. And I don't think we're going to see that from him. But just the situation he left the defense in tells you all you need to know about how good this defense is. If the Seahawks get into the playoffs, and they will, like they're legitimate Super Bowl contenders.
Did I see it correctly? Your New West Highacks were part of the highest scoring BC high school football game of all time last week. They lost 76-53 to WJ Mowat.
Yeah, and they're always mine in my heart, but I haven't coached them in the last 4 years, and it was one of those games. I talked to the coaches before, and I know a lot of the players because a lot of the seniors played with my son, and everybody was like, if we get a monsoon, we can win this game because they knew how good Mowat was. Well, they got a monsoon. And it didn't stop Mowat from throwing the ball in crazy numbers. And the 53 points New West scored, it wasn't against Mowat backups. Like, it was against their starters. They were scoring throughout that game. So it was wild. And the previous highest scoring game, the previous two highest scoring games, I was coaching in. One was in 2009 when we took our newest team to Meridian to play. So that was one BC team. And then before that, I think it was like 1998 when I was coaching at Burnaby Central. And we played against St. Thomas More in the Burnaby Bowl, like over 100 points scored in both of those games. And this game blew those numbers out of the water.
Farhan Lalji, notable defensive coordinator for high school.
You left a mess. That's why they gave up 75 points. You left a mess.
I'll never forget that 98 game. I was the offensive coordinator at Central, and Lou Delorier, who eventually became the UBC head coach, was the defensive coordinator for STM. And we both came down the stairs at Swangard Stadium. That's where the game was being played at halftime. And I looked over at him and I said, "I'm loving this." He's like, "I don't feel the same way."
Outstanding.
Is this the high school football report?
It's near and dear to his heart. I know it is.
Provincial semifinals this Sunday at BC Place.
There we go.
Get out there.
Oh, right.
There we go.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a good thing.
When the Canucks Flame game gets boring, come across the street or go first. Do the little pregame at BC Place, then go to the Canucks.
Yeah. Just skip Flames Canucks altogether. That thing could be a bit of a disaster. Farhan, thank you for doing this. Next week, barring something changing, you'll be back with Donnie on Thursday.
All right, and go watch the women's hockey tonight too.
Absolutely. Yeah,
absolutely.
Golden Knights. Yeah, we've been talking about that. Thanks, Farhan.